Hello, my name is Johnny Ostrom. I'm an animation technician here at Emily Carr. Today I want to do a quick student submission question. This was submitted by Noah Burr. He wants to make some animated tentacles, some procedurally animated tentacles potentially. It's from a tentacle monster. They're kind of flailing and moving about. Of course he can animate this by hand, but it might take a long time. So we're going to look at how to use nHair and dynamics to drive a bone chain, which will in turn drive our geometry. So here we go. First thing we'll need to do is we'll need some geometry, and Noah has some tentacles, but I'll just make one real quick, easily out of a cone like so. If I want this to deform, I'll need more divisions, so I'm going into polycone and I'm increasing the subdivision height. So there, that looks good, and of course I will clear my history and freeze my transforms, just as kind of like a habit. So what do we need? The first thing we need is a bone chain. So I'm going to go to my front view and start from the left, and I'm going to create a skeleton joint. Let's see, create skeleton, create joints. I'm going to create a bone chain up the middle of this tentacle, like so, and then up to the tip. There we go. And now I'm going to create a curve. Create a CV curve. Let's see, create curve, CV curve, and now I'll hit V and I'm going to snap this to each of the points on this bone chain. So I'll hide this first, do that again. So hit G, snapping to the curve, or to the skeleton here, like so. I'm adding a lot of points here. It could potentially be less points. I mean, just kind of do what you think is necessary for the amount of detail you want in the motion. So right now, if I look at my outliner, I now have a bone chain. I have my curve. Oh, this was a curve 1 is just a dud. I'll delete that. Curve 2 and joint, and then I of course have my tentacle. So now, what do I do? Well, I'm actually going to make a few of these. So before I even begin, I'm just going to duplicate these out. So I'll select this and this and this, and I'll just duplicate and make a bunch of these. There we go. You can have as many of these as you want. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we are going to make these curves dynamic. We're going to use something called make curves dynamic using nHair. So I'll select all 4 curves. I will go to FX, nHair, make selected curves dynamic. I can hit the option box, but I haven't changed anything. So just like that. And we will see that it's created a hair system. It's created 4 hair follicles and 4 output curves. So the follicles are like the simulation part, and the output curves are the result of the simulation. And the output curves are what we're going to be focusing on. So next thing we need to do is to create a spline IK solver, and that's in animation, or sorry, in rigging. So in skeleton, you can see we have create IK spline handle. And what this allows us to do is it creates a spline which the joint system is bound to. So we would then use the curve spline to control the bones. That's a really confusing way of doing it, but let's just set one up really quick. So for this to work, we need to hit 3 different things. First, we need to hit the base of our system. So we will hit the bottom of our joints, then we'll shift click, we'll hit the top of our joint, and then we will control click our curve, our corresponding curve. Now there's actually one thing I forgot that I should have gone into, and that is that and I'll do it again with this next version, but I'll do this again. So create IK spline handle. If we were to reset this tool, it would actually have a few things on. It would have auto create curve and auto simplify curve. Both these things need to be turned off. Auto create curve needs to be turned off because we are providing a dynamic curve already. If that were on, it would create a new curve, and that curve would not be dynamic. We need to select our dynamic curve. So with that turned off, let's hit the bottom again, the top, and control click the curve. Do that another time. Make sure we have the right curve that goes with it. So joint 20 goes with curve 9. Here we go. So doing that again. Skeleton. Create IK spline handle. Bottom. Shift. Click. Top. Control. Click. Curve 9. There we go. And you should probably do this with just 1 instead of 4 the first time. But let's do it again. So, I'm going to hit G this time. Bottom. Shift click top, Control click curve 8. There we go. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to play it back, but it's probably not going to do anything interesting, and there's a couple of reasons why. First off is that if we look at our IK handle, our spline solver, if we look at our follicle, is that where? Follicle shape? There we go. If we look at each of our follicles, we have something here that says point lock, both ends. And what we want to do is, in this case, we want to only lock one side of this curve. Right now it's locked to the base, it's locked to the top, and what that means is that when we use this IK handle, it would be stuck with that. It would conform to both the starting and the end point of this IK handle. But if we go into the follicle and we turn off point lock and set it to base on each of these, base, base, and base, like so, then it will only be attached to our first point. I hit play, nothing's going to happen again. Why is that? Well, these curves are dynamic, but they have nothing that's really happening to them. There's no gravity, there's no turbulence. So the easy thing we can do is just go into turbulence, increase the intensity, and we'll play, and all of a sudden we can see they behave exactly as we would kind of hope they would. Now, there's a couple other things we want to do. First is we can go into our hair system, and to dynamic properties, and we can change the stiffness. So maybe they're stiffer here at the base, but they're not as stiff at the tip. And you can play with that if you want to. Another thing that we might want to do, of course, is let's just skin these already. Let's go to skin, bind skin, make sure we reset our settings, and do that. And let's do that for each of our tentacles, making sure we're selecting our mesh, and then the root of our skeleton chain, mesh, root. Now when I play, this will have all of them bound, like so. Alright, good. There's something else that's happening, and we're seeing that they're kind of colliding with each other and running through each other. Well, we can actually change that if we go into our follicle, and each follicle, or sorry, our hair system shape, we have collisions here. And we have collision strength and collision with width offset. And let's see if we go to our follicle shape. I believe that we also have individual controls. Let me see where I found that. I can hear Noah right outside the window. Collision with offset. That's right, that'll do it. So if we increase this collision width offset, that'll make our collision self-collide width scale. If we increase this, then the colliding geometry for each of these tubes will increase their size, and we'll be able to see them colliding. Let's do that again. Let's increase it by 2, and let's check it out. Okay, it's really difficult to see anything because they're jiggling all over the place and they are hitting the ground. So let's create a ground plane that is going to be our collider. So we'll do a cube, we'll drag it, give it some depth. I find that collisions with planes never work very well, like so. And now we'll click our hair system and our cube, and we will go into effects, end particles, or sorry, end cloth, create passive collider. There we go. So this should now be a passive collider, and these guys should, well, they're freaking out because it's actually, they're intersecting with it. So let me bring it down a little bit, like so, and let's try that again. Bloop. Interestingly, they're kind of hitting it in a place that it's not. So let's delete this and let's just try it again. Let's just go polygons, cube. Let's create this, dragging downwards. Let's clear our history and our pivot point and our freeze transforms. Let's go to end cloth and create a passive collider again, and let's see if it works this time. Interestingly, I think the reason this is actually happening is because there's a few things going on. It's the collision width. I made a mistake. I apologize. Let's go back into our hair system, and what we need to do is keep this collision width offset at 0, but let's turn on self-collide. So now what that means is they're going to collide, but they're also going to collide with each other. That's what self-collide does. We'll increase the self-collide width scale, and now we should be able to see them interacting with each other. Still no. Let's do collision with offset. That's too much. Let's do self-collide width scale. Hmm. Interestingly, they're not actually colliding with each other still. Collision layer, so let's just up it a little bit more. Let's see if that helps. This is the life of a technical artist. You just continue to tweak things and see if it will work eventually. Still not working. Okay, let's try something else. Let's go into our follicle shape, follicle attributes. Density, dynamic overrides. I don't think we need any of that. Let's see if there's another place for collisions here. Dynamic properties, collisions. I don't know what's going on. We'll try increasing our collide strength. I don't know what's going to do. It's funny, the last example of this I did, and it worked perfectly. So why wouldn't it be working now? Well, at this point, I am just going crazy. So I'm just going to increase it even more because I'm desperate. Nothing. Well, they kind of look like they're... Okay, so in this case, it looks like they are getting tangled up, but they're maybe moving so fast that they can't calculate, potentially. So, I don't know, let's see, what can we do? Oh, solver display. Collision thickness. Oh, that's useful. Okay, now that we have collision thickness on, let's make sure we're showing all. Let's see if we can just increase this until we can see it. That's interesting. Collision thickness. Is that the thickness of it? In which case, it's not nearly wide enough. Why isn't it wider? 50? Those are very thin. Turn this off again. Yeah, very thin. Self-collision thickness. Still very thin. I must have a scene scale thing going on. So there we go. There's our self-colliding. And our collision thickness is still low. But let's see if that works. Yeah. Well, now they're kind of obeying that strength. It seems like there maybe is a scene scale thing going on. But yeah, definitely use solver display, self-collision thickness, and you can see how large they are. And I imagine that there's actually probably a dynamic properties thing in our hair system. We can probably find a... Let's see, can we find a scale? I'm wondering where this drop-off comes from. I don't actually know. Huh. I don't know. Well, it's great to see them bending and curving around each other. Let's make this a bit longer so we can watch it longer. There we go. I love that. I think that's so cool. I'm pretty pleased, to be honest. Though we never figured out why they fall off in that specific manner. We never found out why the self-collision thickness is like that. But you know what? I'll figure that out another time, and I will get back. Let's do one more thing though. Let's just look back at our hair system, and I want to show you one more thing, and that is obviously we can adjust the bendingness of this curve by changing all the dynamic properties. So if we want to change the stretch resistant to something very low, then these guys would have less of a problem stretching out and changing their length. If we want to change the stiffness scale, I kind of went over that. And start curve attract. Say this start curve is up straight. If we want to make them kind of conform to that curve more, we can just increase this. And what it's going to do is that's going to make them want to behave more like that first curve that we drew. And you can even animate this stuff. So if you wanted to make them, you know, start like this and then all of a sudden get straight up, you could. Just set a key, right click, set a key, and animate that. But I think, you know, this to me looks pretty good. So I'm sorry about those little spots where I didn't know, but I hope this helps, and this technique can be applied to so many different things. It could be applied to ropes, it could be applied to plants, it could be applied to so many things. So I hope that this is helpful, and see you next time.